Hello.
Hey, Aaron, how are you?
I am good. Okay. So next year Pesach is in Gaza. That's what I'm hearing from Trump.
Not a Gaza of America?
Yeah. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Interesting day today in the
Oh
world.
yeah. It's always interesting with the current president.
Yes, it is. Did you see how he walked down the corridor and went and welcomed Netanyahu? It's an
No, I didn't see
amazing
that.
video.
I'll look for that.
It's just amazing.
I saw that. It was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, everything he does is unconventional. I've never seen that ever. I've never seen that, that shot of president walking down through the corridor from the Oval Office to the front.
I'm gonna go look for it now.
Yeah. And then how he introduces him to all the staff, and they're like so happy to see him.
Yep.
What a different reaction. You could see the handshakes and the welcome. They're like, like Netanyahu is a hero instead of a villain.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely fascinating. I mean, I don't know what it all means, but it certainly is a different environment and atmosphere than in the Mr. Biden's leadership.
There was leadership.
Well, like Lishna Ma'alia, he used, clean language. Unbelievable. And the press conference when Netanyahu said he's the greatest friend of Israel ever in the White House, and that there's a chance for peace, there's unconventional ideas, thinking outside the box. Obviously, he's playing to the audience, but and he's smart to do that. But still, he would never have said that for the other guy. But that's an amazing video. If I have let's see, do I have you down here, Harold? Yeah, I do. I'll send it to you. I just sent it to you. Did you get it? Okay. Shocking how many people there are. There aren't there?
Yeah. What are they all doing there?
Yeah, apparently it takes a village to get two.
Yeah.
To meet.
Oh my God, he went outside for it. Wow.
Outside, yeah, and watch the rest of it. It's unbelievable. And the way they shake hands, you can see sort of the genuine admiration he introduces him.
Did you watch the press conference?
Yes. Yes.
It was... Maybe you take that one.
Yeah. Amazing.
Hello, everybody.
Hi there. Good evening.
Just getting my safer. 1 second.
Yeah. It has got to be the most unusual video I've seen in a long time.
He tucks him in his chair.
Yeah, he pulls out his chair. Could you believe that?
He gave him a lot of cover. It was really...
He really was. He really is.
Wow.
What a difference,
Yeah, that's great. That is great.
Before he was like persona non grata. Like, okay, we'll let you come if you behave yourself, and maybe we'll be a little bit nice to you, but that's it. This is like his buddy and he holds the chair out for him.
Yeah, Biden would have done it and pulled it out from under him.
Right.
And Obama would have hit him on the head
Remember when he had Schumer say that that's time for he's the Shomer Yisrael and should have the Israelis should bounce Netanyahu. Yeah, amazing. Just amazing.
Schumer's horrible
He
person.
really is. He really is.
So apparently, I saw that there's a lot of Hamas protesters. I mean, Hamas protesters outside the White House right now.
Well, I hope they're illegal because then they'll all be deported. And we'll have a little bit less to deal with.
We, I believe, are on page 230.
I think that's correct.
230, volume 17. We're still in the sugi of Havdalah. This is the correct position for Havdalah.
Oh.
We have discussed the details of the various components of the Havdalah ceremony. We will focus on the proper position in which to recite Havdalah, which is a question addressed by the Rishonim. Tosfos observes that the common practice is to stand, but they conclude that it would be better to sit. This is because when reciting a bracha involving food or drink on behalf of others, it is appropriate to demonstrate that the group are part of a formal gathering. This is brachas mem gimel amud aleph of Tosfos. Tzarchiyun ktsas mehavdalah shanu mavdilim v'omdim. He says we have to sort of investigate this thing that we stand when we make Havdalah. Heichanu poitim zed zeh miyayin. The person who's making Havdalah through Shomer Ka'oneh is pattering, is fulfilling the obligation for the people listening to drink wine, Havdalah. And he notes that this patur is happening even though we're not sitting. So maybe we could say that since they're all being there to be Mekayim, to be Yotzei Havdalah, so there's a kaviyus regarding the Achilon on everything. Lakach noah v'tov l'mavdil gam l'shoimim sheyeshvu b'shas Havdalah she'az yanira kikeva upoiter or something. Like, we're talking about the sudas kva. In order to make brachas for one person to be yotzei for everybody, they should all be sitting in the same suda, and therefore it might be a better idea to do it sitting, says Tosfos. However, the Kolbo writes that standing is preferable as it shows more respect. We are escorting the Shechina out of Shabbos, more covered the derech levia mu'umid. And this dispute is discussed by the Shulchan Aruch, who writes that one should sit, and the Ramo writes that Ashkenaz's custom is to stand. Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber, says Omer Havdalah miyushiv, and says the Ramo v'yesh omer mu'umid v'chei noagim b'medinas elu. In Ashkenazic lands, the custom is to stand. Rav Ovadia Yosef writes that although ideally those who follow the rulings of the Shulchan Aruch should sit, if only the person reciting Havdalah drinks, it is possible that even according to Shulchan Aruch, standing is permitted. And we know women don't have a custom not to drink of the wine. And therefore, since really you're not being motzi the other people, the standing is not a problem. Nira sheyesh liyashev shneim. The Rav Ovadia is trying to resolve so that really both views are okay. Tosfos was talking about places where the people standing listening to Havdalah would want to drink some of the wine. Then he had a problem with doing it all standing. Says Rav Ovadia, if the one who makes the Havdalah drinks the whole thing, and the ones listening are not going to taste it, there's no requirement to give to the people in the family to taste from it. And another Rishon, that it's not the normal practice of the people who listen to Havdalah to drink. Ki mavdil shoses kol hakos. Usually the mavdil is drinking the whole thing. Therefore, there's no problem with doing the Havdalah standing. Come on, mitzvahs shofar. In fact, all mitzvahs, we learn it from Kama from Sfiras HaOmer. That just like over there, we're required to stand. So by all mitzvahs, we stand. Mitzvah shofar, mikra megillah, v'chiyotze b'shiyotze dechovetz ha-mitzvah, af kishamoitze yosem yidei choy v'hu me'umed, u'v'zeh gamaran moide she'ein tzarach le'ishe. The Shulchan Aruch would also agree you don't have to sit for that. Despite the ruling of the Ramah that one should stand for Havdalah, Shama Askenazim sit, and that's the position of the Gra, as implied in Bir HaGra, and stated by his students, the Maisa Rav, Havdalah Miyushav. Okay, what about Malava Malka? We have discussed over the last two Shi'urim how Havdalah formally concludes Shabbos and begins the new week. The Gemara Masechta Shabbos stresses that there's one additional mitzvah related to Shabbos that takes place following Havdalah, namely eating a respectable meal on Motzei Shabbos known as Malava Malka. So, Amar Rav Chanina, La'olam Yisayder Adam Shulchan Motzei Shabbos. A person should set up a table to eat Motzei Shabbos. Aval Pi She'ein Tzarich Ela Kazayis, even if he's only going to eat a little bit. Chamin b'Motzei Shabbos, Melugma. Pas Chamin b'Motzei Shabbos, Melugma. Melugma means it's a help. It's a skula. Ravavo would make a fatted calf to eat Motzei Shabbos. He would eat a kidney from it. Ki got a lavimi bray when his son Avimi got older. Armalei, you're cutting, you're shechting this whole calf and you're eating a kidney and that's it? You're losing out. Nishbok kulyasa imale shapta. Let's just, the kidney that we're going to eat Friday night, leave it over until Motzei Shabbos. So shavku v'asa aryeh achla. So the next week, I guess, they did not slaughter it, and a lion came and ate it. So then means you shouldn't be stingy when it comes to Malava Malka. The Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos says, "V'chein mesader shulchan motzei Shabbos v'aval pi she'ein tzarich ela lekazayis." Even if you like to eat kazayis, but you should set the table. It should be b'kovedik in order to honor it on coming and going. Shulchan Aruch brings the Rambam la'olam yisader adam shulchan motzei Shabbos. To escort the Shabbos. The Mishnah Berurah gives us some details. Yisader Adam Shulchano. Hainu lifros mapal Shulchano. They're covered to put a tablecloth. The same thing, you put flowers, whatever you would normally do to set a nice table. You don't have to prepare special dishes or to prepare more than you would normally eat Saturday night. Mashma b'Gemara, the ikba suda zu ala pas lechatchila. You should be kover suda on bread, kemo b'shar suda shel Shabbos, like other sudas. B'kamashma b'tol lechatchila lahader oso b'basar or b'shar tavshilin. You should have meat or other nice dishes. Im yeshlo. V'mein or he's concerned that he's overeating. He ate a whole bunch on Shabbos, now he's going to eat again. In the summer, we delay Shalosh until it's very late, and now you're going to have to eat another meal, Malava Malka? So you kind of, b'mezonos or kolponim b'peiros. So the Mishnah Berurah suggests eating of some cake, or cookies, or fruit, He didn't have pizza, but I guess that became the prevailing minig for Motzei Shabbos. And the reason is for honoring Kedei Lavos, to escort the Shabbos out. The Kashem Shetzorach Lechabed HaShabbos B'Knisasa. Just like we honor Shabbos, we take a bath, we put on new clothing, we dress the table so beautifully. So we're honoring Shabbos on its arrival. Just like you welcome the king when he arrives, you escort the king when he leaves. You should hold the meal that you're having Malav Malka pretty early, so that it's very close to when Shabbos left. If he's not hungry, so he says something else. You shouldn't start doing some kind of major work until you've mekayim the Suda Malav Malka. And you should not delay the meal until to delay it after chatzos. Amru hakadmoinim, the Ever Echad Yesh Bodam Uniskoi Shmo. It's called the Naskoi. V'zayver Nishra Kaim Bekever. I think it's the pineal gland. It's up in the skull. And we've been told that when you are buried, everything else deteriorates except this remains. And that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu does Tchias HaMesim. All the bones have gone away. This Aver Eino Nana Mishum Achila Ki Mesudas Malav Malka. This remains, and this limb gets all its nourishment from Malav Malka. It's not a chiyuv kimo hasholosh sudishal Shabbos. The Shamas Mechu Akra. There was psukim that gave us a remez to the three sudas. V'zerak mitzvah ba'alma. It's a mitzvah, but if you do it, it's not a choiv. For example, he doesn't have enough food for 3 meals on Shabbos and the Malav Malka. You should have the 3 meals. So the Mishnah Berurah makes the following points. One need not prepare more food than one wishes to eat. Ideally, one should eat bread and Malav Malka as well as other dishes such as meat. But if one does not have or is too full, even grain products or fruit suffices. Ideally, Malav Malka should be eaten shortly after Shabbos, but if one is still full, it should not be delayed later in Chatzos. Malav Malka is not a bona fide obligation, and therefore the Shabbos meals would take precedence if one cannot partake in all of them.
You know, I always thought the halacha was, I know I saw this somewhere, and he doesn't mention it at all, that you should have something hot at Malav Malka, and if you're really afraid of overeating, you have a hot coffee or something, and that fulfills the obligation. I don't see this here at all, but I'm pretty sure
it said bishar tafshilin, other cooked foods. So that's
meaning warm, not okay.
Cooked food.
Yeah, and I always understood that again. If you really can't eat anything because you've eaten a big meal shortly before, you have a
hot coffee.
Drink. But he doesn't mention. Okay, maybe.
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
Concerning the proper time, some mystical sources take a different approach and indicate that the latest time to eat Malav Malka is 4 hours into the night. The earliest recorded source for this is the Chemdas Yomim, a possible Sabbatean sefer of unknown authorship. He writes that one eats Malav Malka later than this has achieved nothing. This was accepted by Rav Chaim Palagi. Although the Ben Ish Chai writes that the 4-hour limit is only an ideal, one may still eat Malav Malka after this time. And most later authorities accept the position of the Ben Ish Chai. I will tell you that my great-great-grandfather, Rav Shimon Yaroslav, is brought down by the Tamei HaMinhagim. It's a very well-known sefer that brings a lot of Hasidic minhagim. It was the minig of Rav Shimon Yaroslav to have Malav Malka Sunday morning with his Hasidim. They had a Suda Sunday morning, breakfast. That was Malav Malka. It's brought down. So, and you see the Ben Ish Chai says that it's okay, that they accept the position that one may still eat malava malka after this time. So Shmir Shabbos says, Shmir Shabbos quotes this view as well as the dispute as to whether one who extends Shalosh Shudis must eat another meal from malava malka. Tov lahagdim Shudis malava malka samach litzisa Shabbos. He says the Ashkenazic psak is to do it close to the end of Shabbos. V'meino tov lechol miyad achrei tzisa Shabbos. If he's not hungry, yachol achrei, he can delay it. You shouldn't do some type of malacha that requires kvias of a fixed nature. You're going to sit down and work on a computer for an hour because you have a project to complete. That's what he's talking about. You shouldn't begin to do that until you've had your meal. After, you shouldn't go later than 4 hours into the night. And not to delay after chatzos. If you ate and you delayed it until after the 3 stars are out, Potter mitzvus malava malka. Rav Ben Sion Abba Shul writes that women are obligated to eat malava malka. Yesh li stapek, he questions im noshim chayovis besudas revius. She'efsha shedin sud revius toli b'avdolo. Maybe malava malka is connected to avdolo. Sheritam echad lahem. It's the same reasoning. Kedei the lavos is a Shabbos because the Yisos of Itziyoso. V'im kena dover toli b'machlokes shevi b'shulchan aruch b'simin reish tzadik vav im noshim chayovis b'avdolo. We went through this whole debate whether women are mechuyev in avdol. If they're not mechuyev in avdol, they may not be mechuyev in malava malka if they're connected. Al kolpanim nire the hoilu moran shulchan aruch pasak lemaisa shenoshim chayovis af b'avdola hu adin shachavs gam kem b'sudas revius. Says the Rabbi Sin Abba Shaul that women would be required to malava malka. V'rabbi Beis Yosef Sham. The Beis Yosef commentary on the tour there says, "Otam l'sudas revius, the etzem yesh ba'adam, the bone sheino nena b'achila b'motzei Shabbos, it gets its nourishment from malava malka. So really women need that as well because they need tchias hamesim too. V'gam yesh tam al pi ha'kabbalah l'sudas revius k'mo shekoz b'shar kavonos. There's a kabbalistic v'ro gam b'kaf ha'chayim v'tamim elu sheichin gam nashim. These reasons are appropriate for women too." The Piskei, footnote 23, the Piskei Tshuva cites some authorities that suggest this practice to fulfill the Mishnah Berurah's recommendation to eat malava malka shortly after Shabbos, though one should still fix a larger meal later since many opinions do not accept this lenient opinion. We're talking about when you extend Suda Shlishis into night. The Piskei Tshuva offers another suggestion to accommodate the Mishnah of having a hot drink. Here's Yaakov, or a snack shortly after Shabbos, and then having a fixed meal later on in the evening. That means having a hot drink right after Shabbos deals with the Mishnah Berurah's concern that you shouldn't wait too long after Shabbos. So that's what he's saying. It doesn't potter you from having the meal. It just allows you, if you're not hungry yet, to have this thing close to Shabbos leaving when they thought that was the best time to do it. So having the hot drink is indeed brought here. Now, among Ashkenazi poskim, the Pri Megadim expresses a more middle opinion that perhaps women are exempt, but he too concludes that women should ideally eat malava malka. Efshar noshim chayavis b'sudas hu miu gam roy l'noshim. That efshar they're not obligated.
Looks like there's a word missing.
Right, looks like there's something missing. The Machzor HaShekel conclude that women are obligated to mitzvah malava malka. What about a machshava? Rav Chaim Palagi writes in his Kaf HaChaim about the importance of eating the malava malka meal. Suda revius achar avdola pliya nizgava. It's a very hidden, exalted thing. Umatzelas mechibut hakever. torment of the grave. It's a Kabbalistic idea mentioned in Shar Gilgulim, Rav Chaim Vital, in which following a person's death and burial, angels beat a person in order to atone for his sins and remove the klipa from him. Rav Palagi is saying here that eating Malav Malka can reduce the suffering of this process. Whoever can't eat bread because he's too full can do it with mezoinos. He should have in mind when he eats Malav Malka that some of the holiness of the Shabbos should project to the various meals he's going to have during the week. So based on yes,
you know, the Hasidim, they wear their strommel and their bekisha through Malav Malka. And I've heard, and this is probably where it comes from, I think, that you should wear, in Malav Malka, you should still wear your Shabbos clothes, and it shouldn't change. So that may be what he's talking about.
Based on the words of Rav Palagi, it seems that Malav Malka serves as a type of bridge between the Shabbos meals, which are filled with joys and holiness, and the rest of the meals one eats during the week. If one fulfills the mitzvah of Malav Malka to the best of his ability, then he will thereby extend the special blessing of Shabbos to the meals of the rest of the week as well. May we merit to fulfill the mitzvah of Malav Malka properly and successfully extend the holiness of Shabbos into the rest of the week. Okay. We now begin dealing with the malachos of Shabbos. And this is going to be an important introduction before we mamish get into the Lametet malachos, the 39 malachos, that will be the subject of the next, 6 or 7 volumes, from volume 18 on, I think, to 24. As in many mitzvos, the proper observance of Shabbos includes both obligations and prohibitions. In the previous shiur of this volume, volume 16, we focused mainly on the positive mitzvos related to Shabbos, which included preparing for Shabbos, Kabbalah Shabbos, lighting candles, Kiddush, the Shabbos meals, and Havdalah. For the rest of this volume, the next few volumes, we will be focusing on the prohibitions of Shabbos, which form the bulk of the halachic literature on Hilchos Shabbos. At the center of the prohibitions lie the melachot, the 39 categories of creative labors. In this shiur, we will learn many of the major principles that shape how these prohibitions apply to innumerable real-life situations. In his introduction to the 3rd volume of the Mishnah Berurah, which deals with the laws of Shabbos, the Chafetz Chaim discusses why it is so critical to study the halachos of Shabbos in detail. And I'm sure many of you have seen this mavo to Chelik Gimel. That means most of us have 6 volumes of the Mishnah Berurah. All of Orach Chaim that we've been learning since volume 8, because volume 1 through volume 7 was Yoredeya. And we started Orach Chaim with Birchos HaShachar in volume 8. So we've been through volume 8 through volume 17, about 10 volumes, which occupy only the first 2 chalakim of the Mishnah Berurah. Right? So the next 2.5 chalakim, Chelik Gimel, Chelik Daled, and I would say a good half of Chelik Hey, involved Hilchos Shabbos, particularly the Malachos, a little bit in Hay about Yontiv. So just to show you how, even though we've gone through 10 volumes of Orach Chaim, it only occupies 2 volumes, only the 2 first volumes of Mishnah Berurah. So at the beginning of Chelik Gimel, the 3rd volume of the Mishnah Berurah, the Mishnah Berurah, the Chafetz Chaim writes, Zechus Shmiras Shabbos Ka'halacha, the merit of observing Shabbos the right way, mo'ilim cholo al kol avonosav. It is of value in atoning for a person's sins. K'moshomer b'gemara. Kol ha'mishamer Shabbos kilchaso. Whoever observes Shabbos lahalacha, afilu chata kedor enosh mochlin. Even if he committed sin like in Dor Enosh. Now, Dor Enosh, what are they known for? For Avodah Zarah. That's the first generation that recognized Avodah Zarah. So even if you're sinning like Avodah Zarah, moichlin lo. Shenemar ashrei enosh yaseh zos, uven adam yachazik ba. This is the last Haftorah in Sefer Yeshayahu. We also read it by Tanis Tzibur. This is the Dirshu Hashem Lehi Matzo. No, it's not that one. It's a different parak in Yeshayahu. Ashrei enosh yaseh zos uven adam yachazik ba. Shomer Shabbos mechalalo v'shomer yado masos kol ra. Al tikra mechalalo ela mocholo. So it's a play on the Kriuk Siv that the person will be forgiven. How is a person going to get to a level where he reaches a level of observance with all of its details? The advice is he has to rouse himself to study the Halchos Shabbos. You have to revisit it and relearn it. So he knows at the tip of his tongue what's permitted, what's prohibited. If not so, afilu im yilmod kol inyonim musarim hamizarzim l'shmir Shabbos karoi lo yoelo. He'll read all the musar he wants. That's going to tell him to be careful for Shabbos. It's not going to help him because he's not going to know what to do. Ukvar heid b'no agon balurim v'tumim, the Rav Yonasan Eibshitz, who was the doppelganger of Rav Yaakov Emden, b'sifra Yaruz Dvash, ki efshar klal b'mitziot shinatzil mi'isra Shabbos and lo yilmod kol adinim al bur meitev eitev. It's impossible for the Metzias to be that he's not going to violate Shabbos unless he has learned the dinim of Shabbos very carefully. He says one of the reasons why there's ignorance and lack of knowledge about Hilchos Shabbos, it's very complex. Just learn the Shulchan Aruch. It's not easy to understand what he wants. This is a sugya that you really need. You need the Gemara, you need the poskim, the early Rishonim and the poskim, and then you'll understand what the Shulchan Aruch wants from you. The Chofetz Chaim, writing in the late 19th century, early 20th century, says people don't have time. They're so busy at work. Not only that, on every issue, there's a machlokes, on every detail. He also has a Hagdama to Chelik Rishon where he goes into the discussion about the machlokes hapoiskim. L'zot kamti v'nitorarti be'ezras Hashem yitbarach l'va'er gam alach l'zochamura. So the Shulchan Aruch says, I aroused myself with God's help to be able to explain as best as possible these difficult halachas. Kol din v'din b'tamo v'nimuko migmor poskim. Every din from the Gemara to the poskim, gam yivuar bo maskanot achronim la'alacha, and I will discuss the final psak by the achronim, al kol prat shenechliku bo poskim hakodmim, especially if there was a machlokas haposkim originally. V'ekaveh b'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, I hope, shemish yilmod atah lachai yeda kol din b'tama v'nimuka halach l'maisa. Everyone should know the reasons and the depths of the halach l'maisa. V'roi v'nochel l'chol yer v'charei l'dvar Hashem. It's important for anybody who has fear of God l'chonein chaburot l'dmot hilchos Shabbos k'dei shelo yikash l'bam, to gather groups to study the laws of Shabbos. K'dei yisa b'yalkut. Like in the Yalkut Shimoni Reish Parshas Vayakel. Arla Kodesh Baruch Hu Moshe Aseh lecha kilos gedolos, gather large groups, udrosh lifneihem b'rabim ilchos Shabbos, and you should do public drushes. V'yadu sheshmer Shabbos kitikuno korv legeula. Keeping Shabbos properly is close to geula. K'mo she'amru chachamenu, ilmol yishram Yisrael shtei Shabbos miyad hayu negolim. So hopefully our study of the Hilchos of Shabbos through the Tzurba M'Rabanan program will enable each of us to improve our observance of Shabbos, and we will merit to bring the redemption more speedily, as the Chafetz Chaim writes. Okay, let's talk about Avos and Toldos, the prohibition against Malacha. The Rishonim count 2 mitzvahs from the Torah with respect to Shabbos observance. Zachor et Yom HaShabbos lekadsho, which is remember, and Shamoris HaShabbos lekadsho, observe the Shabbos day to sanctify it. Zachor es Yom HaShabbos is in the Aseret Dibros, written in Parshas Yisro, and the Shamor is written in Parshas Vaschana. The directive Zachor is understood to require a person to verbally mention the day of Shabbos in the form of Kiddush when Shabbos begins, and Havdalah when it concludes, as we learned previously. Complementing the mitzvah to remember is the mitzvah to observe, or let's use the word protect, Shabbos, in the form of refraining from labor. This is indicated by the directive Shamor, by which we are commanded to refrain from work. Rambam explains that if someone performs Malach on Shabbos, this violates a positive mitzvah and a negative mitzvah. The command not to work is the source of the prohibition to perform any of the 39 categories of labor on Shabbos. Shvisa b'shvi mimlacha, abstaining from work on the 7th day, mitzvah saseh, is a positive mitzvah. Shenemar vayom hashvi tishbos. So that's an aseh that says you should abstain from work. Now, the chola osa bo malacha bitel mitzvah saseh. So if you did a malacha, any of the 39, you did not observe the mitzvah saseh of shvisa. And the over lo saseh, shenemar lo saseh kol malacha. In the Aseret Dibros, in Yisro, it says don't do work. And as mentioned earlier, this shiur serves as an introduction to the laws of Shabbos, in which we will clarify a number of principles, regulations, and illustrations related to the concept of malacha on Shabbos. What about women in the malachos? According to the Mishnah in Gemara Masechta Kiddushin, women are obligated to observe all negative prohibitions in the Torah. Kol mitzvahs lo saseh, right? In contradistinction, the Mishnah is going to say, to mitzvah saseh, where there's a distinction. Mitzvahs saseh that are tied to time, women are exempt from. Mitzvahs saseh that are not tied to time, women are chayiv. All mitzvahs lo saseh, bein shazman grama, bein shelo azman grama, whether they're time bound or not, echad anoshim ve'echad anoshim chayovin, chutz mibal takif, the prohibition of shaving the corners of your beard, ubal tashkas, tashkas is don't shave deeply, which destroy it, ubal tatam lemesim, and the prohibition of to a kohen to not be metame himself, that's only to males. And the baltakiv and baltashkas is also males because women don't have beards. So the Gemara wants to know Manoah and Mili. How do we know this issue that women are commanded all the lavim? Amar Vidam Rav, Chen Tanav Rishmol Amar Kra, Ish o Isha, Ki asumi kol chatos adam. Hishva kosov isha leisha chol onshim sheb'Torah. So therefore, a woman has all the, she gets malchus, she gets capital punishment, any aver that she does, it's exactly like men.
You
Therefore-
skipped the Matame Mace, is also,
I said, ubal titam elamesim.
you did say it, I'm sorry.
I did, and I said, only male kohanim are adjured to not be matamic to a mace. Female kohanim don't have that din. It's only males. And we said the Baal Tashchis and the Baal Takif because women don't go here. Therefore, the Sefer HaChinuch writes, it's clear that women are obligated to refrain from all prohibitions on Shabbos, just as men. So that's directly from this chinuch. Then we have 39. The Masechta lists 39 primary categories of labor. Avos malachos arboim chaser achas. They are 40 minus 1, which is 39. Hazoreya, one who sows seeds. Choiresh is plow. Koitzer, one who harvests. Ma'amer, you gather sheaves. Hadosh is you thresh. Hazora, you throw it into the wind. Haboirer, you select good from bad. Toichen, grinding. Baraket is sifting. Halash is kneading. Ha'of is baking. Hagozes is atzemer, means you shear the wool. And then hamalabno, you whiten the wool. V'hamenaftzno, you comb it. V'hatzova, you dye it. V'hatova, you spin it. V'hamesach, you stretch it on the loom. V'osa shtei batei nirin, you construct like a,
The warp and the
warp and a
woof.
woof, warp and a woof. One, when you're weaving, it's like when you weave two things together, we'll see the batei nirin. V'ha'oreg shnei chutim, you weave two threads. V'ha'potzea shnei chutim, you sever two threads. Ha'kosher, you tie. V'ha'mater, you untie. V'ha'tofer shtei tfiros, you sew two stitches. V'ha'koream naslitfor, you tear in order to tie, in order to sew it back. Hatzad tzvi, you hunt a deer. Hashochto, you shecht it. V'mavshito, you skin it. Hamolcho, you salt it. V'amaved, you tan its hide, esoro. V'hamemachako, you smooth it. V'amachatcho, you cut it into pieces. Hakoisev shtei oisios, you write two letters. Hamoichek al menas lichtov shtei oisios, you erase in order to write two letters. Habona, you build. Vasoiso, you destroy. Hamechaber, you extinguish. Hamaver, you light a candle. Hamake bepatish, which like you strike something with a hammer. Basically, you complete the work of something. Then amotzim reshus l'reshus, you carry from reshus hayochid to reshus harabim, or from reshus harabim to reshus hayochid, or you carry dalad amos reshus harabim. Harei elu avos malachos arboim chaserach. So that's a nice introduction. The Gemara in Masechta Bava Kama observes that what is this reference to avos, primary categories of forbidden labor? By saying that there's not, there must be tolodos, which are subcategories. The Gemara adds that even if activities classified as avos, and those classified as tolodos have the same legal status, meaning both are prohibited, there is an important difference. Gabi Shabbos Tanan, avos malachos rabim chasrachos, avos mechlal deka toldos. The Gemara points out, by saying that there's an av means that there's a tolda. Well, what's the difference between an av and a tolda? So the Gemara says tolda the same as kayotze behem. A tolda is treated like an av. Loshna av chatas, loshna tolda chatas. So right away we've learned something important. We're going to learn the concept of doing something b'shogeg. The word doing something b'shogeg, when it references Shabbos, It could mean that I didn't know today was Shabbos. I thought it was Monday. That's one way of being a shogeg. Another way of being a shogeg is I didn't know that this malacha was prohibited. I thought it was permitted. Both are shogeg, and there's going to be a difference between those two types of shogeg. But in general, when you violated Shabbos b'shogeg, you were not put to death. You brought a korban chatas to the Beis HaMikdash. And so we're going to see there's a broad category of kotzer. That's the av. Under kotzer are other types of malacha that are categorized as kotzer, but they're not. But it's a tolda. But the Gemara now has told us that whether you did the av b'shogeg or if you did the tolda b'shogeg, it's the same punishment. You have to bring a korban chatas. Or if it was the time when the Beis HaMikdash was around and you were warned by two Eidim, you would be put to death, whether you did an av or whether you did a tolda. That's why it says tolda sem kayotze behen. Loshna av chatas v'loshna tolda. Loshna av skila v'loshna tolda skila. Whether you did the koitzer av or whether you did a tolda of koitzer, you brought the same korban and you were put to death. So the operative question then is, ma ikke bein av l'tolda. So then what's the difference? Why did we have avos and why did we have toldas? Nafkamina the ilu avad shtei avos b'hadi adadi, or inami shtei toldas b'hadi adadi mechayva kol chada v'chada. So let's say a person forgot that choresh is prohibited and koitzer is prohibited. He thought they were permitted, and he did both of them. You would bring two korban chatases. And if you did a tolda of choresh and you did a tolda of kotzer, you would also bring two. However, the reason to understand avos and toldas well is if I did koitzer, which is the av, and I did a tolda of koitzer. So if I did an av and a tolda, and I forgot that both of those were prohibited, and I did both of them, I would only bring one korban chatas. So we've learned we've learned why. Therefore, it's important to know the various avos and the toldas that follow each one. Now, this is a machlokas tanoim. The Rabbi Eliezer, the Mechayva tolda b'makom av. Rabbi Eliezer says that you would bring two chatases if you performed koitzer and its tolda. He argues. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, then what? Am I korei le'av? Am I korei le'tolda? Then we're back to Rabbi Eliezer with the question. Then why did we need av and tolda? So Rabbi Eliezer gives a definition. Hacht avi b'mishkan chashiva korei le'av. What were these 39 types of work? They were 39 works that were carried out in the Mishkan in the desert when Bnei Yisrael were there for 40 years. And we'll go through all of them, but they were all done in the Mishkan. Now later on, the Tanoim described various toldos that fell under these categories. They weren't actually done in the Mishkan. That's all, but they're treated exactly the same according to Rabbi Eliezer. The avos were only malachos seen in the Mishkan. The toldos were seen elsewhere. If so, even though the culpability for an avatolda is the same, there is still significance to the distinction between the two, at least according to the first Tana. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the difference between an av and a tolda appears to be only conceptual. Nevertheless, some difference may exist between the two in the realm of hasra, the warning given to someone on the verge of committing a sin with a person is not subject to the death penalty. If one warns a person not to violate one tolda in place of another tolda, even if they both stem from the same av, the warning would not be valid. Tosfos even considers the possibility that one must warn a person against violating a tolda by invoking its av, meaning not only do you have to warn the person, you say, oh, don't do this tolda, it's the av, it's a tolda of the following av. You got to give a complete warning. And if not, your warning is lacking, and that might save his life from Bezdin. But what the Gemara is also saying is, even according to Rabbi Eliezer, who said there's no difference between if you did an av and a tolda, you would still get two. But if you were warned about one tolda and it's not the right tolda, you wouldn't get any punishment. If one performed an av and its corresponding tolda within the same lapse, the definition of a single lapse is a consecutive period of time in which a person had no awareness that the acts were a violation of Shabbos. This means that the person committed an act without knowing that it was prohibited, or as I said before, without knowing that it was Shabbos. And before becoming aware, the same person committed one or more additional prohibited labors. That's called, in that period of forgetfulness, he did a number of things, so you might pile up number of korbanos that you have to do, right? That person is obligated to bring one offering in total. If you perform, remember, that's according to the Tanna Kama, that if you did the av and it's tolda within the same forgetfulness. However, if someone performed two different avos, or an av of one category and a tolda of another, the person is obligated to bring an offering for each distinct category of labor, which is two. In the Perush HaMishnayos, the Rambam delineates the terms of a tolda. Ve'atolda hu shetachshov b'libecha al totzaot pu'ula otam lacha menuyah b'avod. If about the results of the action of one of the prohibited primary categories, and anytime you find that same actions, it's a tolda of that av. Chomaka b'shetimtza ota pu'ula zehu tolda le'oto av. And he's going to give an example, but let's see the footnote. The Maggid Mishnah explains further that any activity which is very similar to the av also qualifies as an av, such as planting saplings, which is very similar to the primary avalach of seeding, which refers to sowing seeds. So there, it's not an av and a tolda, both would be avos. In contrast, activities that are only somewhat similar to the av, similar to the examples brought in the Rambam here and in the Mishnah Torah, classified as a tolda. Other Rishonim, such as Tosfos ben Chananel, the Ramach, and the Ran, appear to understand the difference between an av and tolda in other ways. So let's see the Rambam's explanation. Shetochen, grinding, is an av malacha. V'inyan tochen utchinas chelek gadol v'afichaso chalakim ktanim. You take something large and you grind it into smaller pieces. Uleficha chitucha yerakos b'Shabbos, chopping vegetables on Shabbos. O nesiris ha'etz, cutting wood lakachas hanesar shelo, in order to take the sawdust. O shifas hamatechas, or polishing or shaving metal lakachas hanesar, because you need the shavings. O bekoha ha'etzim, splitting wood, la saka, because you need the firewood. These are toldos of tochen, because he describes tchina as starting with something large, grinding it into smaller pieces. So he brought other examples where that would be considered a tolda of the tchina. What do you do with cooking? You soften hard things. If you melted one of the metals, or heated up, that's hareza tolda ofeh. The terms cooking or baking are used interchangeably, although the Mishnah above referred specifically to baking, not to cooking. This category of labor, the most prominent halachic writings, is discussed at length in this volume in Shir 7 and much of volume 18. Let's try to finish the Raisa D'Rabbanan. All of us and Toldos are classified as biblical forbidden activities or malachos d'oraisa. The halachos of Shabbos also contain many rabbinic prohibitions as well. For each category of malacha on Shabbos, we can distinguish between those which are forbidden midoraisa and those forbidden midrabanan, which is a shvus. Chazal employed the term chayiv in the context of violation of Shabbos to indicate full culpability for violating Shabbos. If the act was inadvertent, the person is obligated to present a chatas. If the act was fully conscious, he was b'mezid, the person is subject to execution. This term contrasts with the term potter, which is implied to describe an action which is prohibited only midrabanan. So when the Gemara uses chayiv, it usually refers to a midoraisa. If it says potter, it's potter of a loser, means you're not allowed to do it because it's also midrabanan. The Rambam summarizes these points. Kol makom shenemar b'ilchos Shabbos sha'osa davar ze chayiv, hari ze chayiv kores, means he's chayiv kores. Ma'ik sham edim basra chayiv skila. B'may yishogi chayiv chatas. V'chol makom shenetzar sha'osa davar ze potter, the one who did the malacha is only potter, is a potter, but not kores. It means he doesn't get kores, or not skila, or not korban, aval osir lasses is so. Dover b'Shabbos v'asrum divrei sofrim v'uar chakam nalach. You have to stay away from the labor, as is mentioned by the Rambam, and as is true in every area of Allah. Even if a given act is forbidden midrabanan, it's forbidden. The Rambam explains that Chazal delineated two categories of rabbinic prohibitions in Hilchos Shabbos. Nemer b'Torah tishbos. The Torah says rest. Afil midvarim she'ein malacha. And it implies to things that are not really what we would think work is. Chayv lishmos mehen. Udvar ma'bein shasar chacham mishum shvus. There are many things that the chachamim said don't do as things that the rabbis don't want you to do. Mehen dvar masur mipnei shein domim l'mochles. Some of them because it's similar to the real malacha, the av malacha. Umehen dvar masur gzeir shem yavo men iser skila. The other things are just stay away from a malacha because we don't want you to come to skila. The distinction between deraisa and drabanan can be substantial on a practical level in extenuating circumstances, such as someone is in pain or mildly ill, when the given rabbinic prohibition would make it impossible to form a mitzvah. Because every law has many details, it's critical to learn the fundamentals defining each category of malacha in order to determine what is biblically prohibited and what is only rabbinically prohibited. This will be one of our objectives over the next few volumes as we examine more carefully many of the 39 malachos of Shabbos. Okay, I think it's a good introduction. We will begin Hilchos Bishul but the introduction is going to take us some time. So there's a lot of important principles that we have to go through. Misasek, Grama, and then we'll start Bishul, which of course is one of the most important malachos on Shabbos that we all get involved in. Questions, comments, ha'aros? Hearing none. Everybody have a good week and a good Shabbos. And we will gather again next week.
Yes, Hashem.
Thank you.
Good. Good.